Hello and welcome to another episode of Dr. Sam Live. Today I'm going to talk to you about a different kind of diabetes than you may be familiar. And it's something that is growing at rampant rate. Now, what is it? Type 3 diabetes. You may not have heard of this one yet, but I'm going to share a little bit of the background. Okay, this all too common and rising in numbers. This is Alzheimer's disease. You've more than likely heard of it, and unfortunately, you might even have friends and family who've been afflicted. It's often referred now in the literature as type 3 diabetes. Now, Alzheimer's is associated with 50 to 80% of reported memory loss in those over 65. Now, it affects the way you think, one's behavior. We used to just see it in our elders. However, it is not uncommon to see people diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease falling into a much younger age range. Try 40 to 50. Yeah. So in the earlier stages, Alzheimer's affects how we learn. And then it may show up kind of as a forgetfulness and maybe a little disorientation, but we usually shrug it off. Then mood and behavior changes start to rear their ugly heads. Personalities change along the way. Families are forgotten, and ultimately, those afflicted may lose their lives to the disease. Now, could this horrific decline be prevented? I'm going to explore that with you a little bit in just a moment. But here's the scoop on type 3 diabetes and the Alzheimer's link. Okay, I want you to think now, type 2 diabetes, we know, we're very familiar with. That's what's called adult onset, yet really that's a misnomer now because there are many children who are afflicted with type 2. Type 1 diabetes is when the body can't produce any insulin, so one has to take insulin. Type 2 is when the body is producing insulin, but it's not able to control your blood sugars. And now we've got type 3, which they're calling diabetes of the brain. Okay, so I'm going to share a little bit more about that. Alzheimer's and blood sugar levels are very intimately related. And the kicker, it doesn't have to be super high levels of blood sugar to seal one's fate. Evidence is demonstrating to us that Alzheimer is not just genetic in nature, but it may be directly affected to defects in the brain's ability to metabolize glucose. So it's not able to use glucose in the way it once was. One's risk for Alzheimer's can be identified using these 3D images of metabolic activity in the brain. It's a really cool study, not very common, and certainly not something that's done as standard practice. Okay, this is possibly something that would be done either after diagnosis is made or when it's become too late and the decline is going too fast and too rapidly. But in one study that I read up on, the images, they showed these similarities amongst those who have the APO, which is APO E4 gene, which is it's a predisposition, easy for me to say, a predisposition. It's a genetic predisposition for Alzheimer's disease. So it showed similarities between those people and those folks who had high blood glucose levels. Now, these are in the high normal range. So mind you, these folks in the high glucose did not have the gene. So we've got two distinct groups. Have the gene, do not have the gene, but have high resting blood glucose, okay, fasting blood glucose. So how high are we talking? Now, this is the part that really got my attention. We're talking under the radar levels. So what that means is there were no H's on their lab reports. You know, like when you look at your blood and you see H's and L's or nothing. So the H's, if it has high blood glucose, we'd expect something to be a problem there. But these folks, there were no H's on their lab reports. Levels were not even high enough to be classified as impaired fasting glucose, let alone diabetes. So on average, the non-ApoE4 people, so the ones who had the high fasting blood glucose, they had levels in the mid-90s. Anything above 100 doesn't even usually get an eyebrow raised, okay? So this is still considered normal in the medical circles. That's the startling point, okay? So I have to add, now this data did not include resting insulin levels. I am 100% positive that this number would have indicated that these folks, even though their blood sugar levels were in the high normal, it would have indicated these folks had hyperinsulinemia, which has a resultant in the insulin resistance. Check into some of my videos and blogs on insulin resistance. That'll get your eyeballs wide open. In fact, I've written a book that focuses a lot on insulin resistance because that, I believe, is the crux of the reason why we have excess body fat, but also why we're developing diabetes, type 2, now type 3. So definitely get your hands on that one. Go to my page, my Facebook page, and you'll see some posts that are promoting that. It's an ebook. You download it immediately and you get informed. Okay, so now what's the take home regarding this Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes? All right, long and the short of it, because I could certainly go down a rabbit hole. But if fasting blood glucose is a concern for you, as it really should be, there are 3 ways that you can curb your risk. All very, very simple, straightforward ways, okay? Now, if you know you're a carrier for the ApoE4 gene, I strongly urge you to start as soon as possible, like right now, next meal, check this is in play, okay? The key here, there's 3 things. First order of risk decreasing business. Number 1, exercise to a moderate intensity, a minimum of 5 days a week. 20 to 30 minutes is all you need if it's intense enough. Now, when you're exercising at this level, it's your body's intensity. You don't need to go compare yourself to some CrossFit, like off the charts, amazing CrossFitter. I don't want you doing that. You compare you to you, okay? You are your study of one. They call it an N equals 1. That is the most important. So I want you to exercise at a level that really taxes your body, not too much and certainly not too little. I mean, if you're spending the 20 to 30 minutes, you better make it, get your best bang for your buck, so to speak, okay? So when you're exercising at that kind of level, a moderate to high intensity, your body first turns to the readily available glucose, which is in your blood. That's what it uses to supply the muscles with energy. Now, when that isn't enough, it's tapped out what's in the blood, it's going to go into the stored glucose, which is your glycogen. You're predominantly storing that in your muscles. So that's excellent. You're tapping into that. Very important. Now, this will decrease the circulating blood glucose and therefore the amount filtering through the brain, okay? It's kind of like, bathing the brain in freshness. That sounds weird. But anyway, that's the truth. That's what's happening. So what it does is not only is it good for your brain and good for decreasing the glucose level, but exercise brings on a more toned appearance. And it gives off some of those feel-good, body-made chemicals. Those things blow away anything man-made, all right? It's a total win-win if you ask me. Now, the second thing you want to be doing, this is the second way to decrease that risk. Wrangle your stressors. So it doesn't matter the source of your stress. It doesn't matter one bit. So let's just be real, because most of our first world stress, it's mental and emotional, all right? It registers all the same. The body does not know the difference. Stress is stress, and it is constant. The all day, everyday kind of constant. And excessive stress is going to cause your blood sugar levels to rise. It's a survival mechanism, and it's a double whammy. Okay, so at first, the stress raises cortisol, which in turn raises your blood sugar level. Because if you've got stress, you've got to release blood sugar into the system so that the muscles can use it to get away, right? So you have enough circulating glucose to fuel those muscles because you need to outrun that proverbial tiger, okay? So let's just call it that. Now, the tiger need not be present. It could be financial or marital troubles. Those may be your tiger, okay? So now in response, the body releases more insulin to meet the heightened blood glucose to drive it into the cells to be used. But that isn't effective. The double whammy is cortisol inhibits insulin's effectiveness. So here you've got cortisol raised because of stress. So stress, that's going to increase your glucose, which is going to increase your insulin, but then the cortisol is going to render your insulin ineffective. It is such a negative feedback circle, and your body will continue to pump out more and more insulin to try to meet the needs of the cells and outrun that tiger. Okay, and this is happening every day, all day long. Now, the third and the absolute biggest bang for your buck when you're trying to decrease this risk of Alzheimer's or type 3 diabetes, it's lowering your cholesterol intake. That will make the biggest impact across the board on obtaining and maintaining healthy blood sugar levels. because if you don't put it in, it's not going to be registered on a blood test. So here's another, no matter the source situation, your body doesn't care where carbs come from. So your body is indiscriminate here. Doesn't care where the stress comes from, and it doesn't care where the carbs come from. Every carb turns into glucose as it's metabolized. A carb is a carb, so make them count. Eat sources of carbs that bring nourishing micronutrients and slather them. This is like your almost your free card. You can't go too overboard, but you get to eat butter. You get to have bacon grease. Slather these wonderful, healthy vegetables. And keep in mind, these are the things that grow above the ground on a plant, vegetables, those kind of things. It could be even kale. You want your healthy greens. Slather them in healing fats while you're at it. I have a saying. Vegetables are a vehicle for fat. Boom, you're welcome. That's it. You have permission. Dr. Sam approved. So how low is low enough when it comes to low carb? So I want to see it so low that your body goes into a state of nutritional ketosis. Therefore, I want you to go keto. Okay. Now I know there's a lot of hype around keto. If you keep paying attention to my YouTube channel and my Facebook channel, you're going to see the real information based on science. There is a lot of hype around keto, and I'm so happy that it's getting airtime. But unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation. So I want you to find that resource that works for you. Maybe me, it may be someone else. I really just want you to make informed decisions. Okay, so we need to find the relationship between Alzheimer's disease and fasting glucose. That gives us an opportunity to really prevent a very debilitating disease. Folks I talk to, myself included, fear losing their mental faculties more than their physical abilities. I mean, I tell you, this is the driving force for me. Yes, I want to be healthy. Yes, I want to look good. Yes, all that stuff. But my God, I do not want to be one of those people that forgets my kids. It's terrible, right? So I want you to go keto, and that will mitigate the risk from high blood glucose levels. End of story. Now remember, I want you to keep this in mind. It's folks with that high normal range of blood fasting glucose, that high normal, they're in the mid-90s. They have similar brain metabolic activity as those who carry that APO4 gene. Now you're a carrier. I don't. And really, I'm not waiting to find out. Neither should you, okay? I'm not waiting to know whether I'm a carrier or not. I am implementing these factors, the exercise, the lower carbs, wrangling my stressors. I mean, every day I'm working towards this, and I strongly urge you to as well. Now, quite frankly, if you're already on the diabetes spectrum, meaning you have metabolic syndrome or you've been diagnosed pre-diabetic to full-blown disease, switching from the standard American diet to a well-formulated keto diet is a huge step in the right direction. And if you are an APO4 carrier and you have any blood glucose levels, please take my advice to heart and take action today, because you can stack the deck in your favor. Absolutely, 100%, you are in charge of it. So by combining a well-formulated ketogenic diet, regular intense exercise, and decreasing those stressors, you can help prevent and potentially improve Alzheimer's related symptoms. So don't wait until you're starting to have the memory lapses, the disorientation, or even worse, usually we who are afflicted, if someone is afflicted, they don't even notice it. It's others noticing it for them. So please share this information with anyone you know who needs to know the information, because it starts by being informed and being able to take charge of your own life. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Be ready for another one soon.